Hello, and welcome to Tuesday Talks with Mom. I'm Tera Myers, and I am so glad you're here. As part of Moms on a Mission, we're empowering moms across the country to stand up and advocate for their children's educational freedom. As a mom of an adult son with Down syndrome, I've walked this road, navigating the school system and fighting for the right to choose the best education for my child. And now I'm here to share that journey with you. Every 2 weeks, we'll sit down with different moms from around the country and provide thoughtful advice and share our experiences. Together, we're building a community of moms who are finding their voices, taking action, and making a difference. Welcome to Tuesday Talks with Mom. Good evening, ladies. How are you?
Great. How are you all?
I'm well, thanks. I was really looking forward to getting together with you tonight so we could just chat about all things school choice.
Sounds good.
Yay.
I don't have my coffee tonight because it feels like hell's front porch outside. So I have my iced tea.
Oh, very good. Yes, it is a little toasty here in Ohio. How about you, Clarice? Are you in Omaha?
I am in Omaha and it is hot. It rained a little bit today, but it's been in the hundreds.
Ooh.
Yes, I think nationwide everybody's scorching, but I'm not complaining because Ohio has seen about 2.5 months of rain and cold weather. So we'll take it. I'll take the heat. It's a great time to cleanse the pores, I guess you could say, lots of sweaty mornings.
Not cleanse the floors.
Yeah, get out there and sweat a little bit, right?
Right.
Well, I know each of us, I think we should probably go over some of our school choice journey. Like a lot of people have asked, tell us about the school choice. I actually had somebody ask me, well, what exactly does school choice mean? We hear you say that a lot. And what exactly does that mean? And I said, the thing that I personally find difficult is that even just the fact that we have to have this discussion, every parent should be able to choose what type of education best meets their child needs. And a
Yes.
lot of times I hear people say, well, those are public funds. Well, let's stop and look at that. We are part of the public. And when we're talking about our children and the needs that they have and having them educated, not just our three groups of children, but all children across our nation, we really need to be looking at the fact that every system in the United States has changed over the period of time, with the exception of the last 100 years or so, and that's our education system. So I look at that and say, it's time that we change that. And that is school choice, is giving parents the power, the rightful place in leading their children's education, and not fighting over systems. I think Clarice, you and I just the other day talked about this, fighting over a system and propping up a system. Becki, we talked about it, how we need to be looking at ways to just open the door. I always say that it's an open door to the future. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, Becki, why don't we start off with you, where your choice in education, you were a teacher. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I taught at a public junior high for 25 years. And I really, the past 3 years that I've stepped away from public education, I've realized it is such a systemic institution. And there are things that you just cannot do in public school. And what comes to mind is we are going to start homeschooling our daughter this fall, and she's going to be in 9th grade. And she learns differently. She has unique learning styles, learning needs. And something that several homeschool parents have already told me is that if something's not working, you can pivot to something else. Like, nothing says that I have to stay teaching in a certain way or a certain topic or whatever, just because that's on the list. And I realized, in my classroom with 32 students per period, 7 periods a day, you can't just pivot. You have to stick with the curriculum. And I understand it. I understand why it is the way it is. It's a factory system. and factory system will not work for every student. So I'm kind of excited that this fall, like I already have a list. I have a skeleton of like, this is what I want to hit with Izzy. And I thought, you know what? We're not stuck anywhere.
That's
We
right.
can we can pivot, we can change, we can go in a different direction, and nobody's going to be telling me that I can't do that. And so it's kind of exciting as an educator to have that freedom.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's great. And, I can relate when I brought first my daughter home and then my son and my younger daughter home. And when I finally figured out that I didn't have to do school at home, that I could actually model a program for each individual child, it was just eye opening. One child got up and was ready on their lessons at 7 a.m. One child needed one-on-one support all day long, and the other child got up usually close to noon and had breakfast at about 12:31, but worked into the night to
Yeah.
complete her lessons as she needed them, sometimes out on the swing set, sometimes underneath the trampoline. But they were very intelligent children, but they all learned differently. One child rolled around on the bench at the kitchen table humming. She studied her spelling words. And you know what? Once I realized that's okay, but in the
Mhm.
traditional public school setting, she would have been labeled as attention deficit or, any variety of other issues when really she just needed to move and
Yeah.
hum while she studied. So it was just yeah, I'm excited for you because you're going to open the doors to all kinds of
Yeah.
opportunities. Clarice, what about you? You've had such an array of experience with school choice options. So tell us a little bit about that and what that's like.
Well, coming from a state where school choice, authentic school choice, is not an option here. We had it for 1 year for a tax credit scholarships for children, and then it got revoked. I've had to navigate the system a little differently. And I will say that when your child is in a school that is not working
Right.
and you don't have another educational option as a parent to steer the funds that are given specifically for your child, because you get a per pupil amount that's supposed to be for your child. So that money, in my opinion, should follow that child.
Hmm.
But
Absolutely.
in the state of Nebraska, in most cases, outside of one district little partnership that has that going on, it doesn't happen. And my daughter had dyslexia. And it was back in 2001 and 2002 where it really was not recognized. We are just now understanding the science of reading.
Hmm.
And so it was difficult. And
Mm,
to sit and watch your child suffer
mm.
day after day, to talk about, and I actually got her picture, and I'll share it briefly. This is my daughter,
Oh,
Letitia.
mhm.
Yep, she's Stannis at Christmas. But
Beautiful.
she just kids know when something's wrong. And
Yeah.
whether we tell them how smart they are, they still have to go into a classroom where they don't understand what's happening, where it's not working for them. Their peers around them see it as well. And so she began to withdraw within herself. Her self-worth took a hit, and she developed some avoid I call it avoidance behaviors.
Yep.
um, she was like, I whatever I got to do to get out of this classroom, because reading is not it. And
Mhm.
by third grade, everything you do involves reading. And
Yep.
Hmm.
that was something she just could not do. And she had been in that system from pre-K all the way up to third grade. And as a mom who they told, hey, you've got to advocate, you've got to be a part of the team. How are you working with the school system to help your child? Are you reading to your child at home? Are you helping with their homework? I was that parent. I did all of it, but she still couldn't read because she had dyslexia. And the school
Mhm.
system did not know how to address it. So if you
Right.
have a child that's stuck, and what I mean stuck, it's so frustrating for the parent and the child. And so I had to look outside the system without any real school choice options that would
Right.
take the money with her. And I was a young parent, and I only made $800 at that time a month, and rent
Wow.
was 445.
Wow.
So, but I still had to try to figure it out. So I ended
Right.
up going to a private school that use the science of reading. I'm on that board today because I believe in what they're doing there.
Amen.
And got her in there, and luckily, by the grace of God, the woman that was the founder, she's no longer living, she believed in school choice. She believed in educational freedom. And she said, Clarice, you work on trying to see if you can get the school system to compensate her schooling and let us teach her how to read.
I
And I
love it.
thank God for that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I understand what happens when, sometimes for people that are anti school choice, they
Hmm.
don't understand it or get it until it hits their front door, or if you put it into the context of nothing is working and this child is going to school every day and she's not learning. What do
That's
you
right.
tell a parent? And anytime I've asked anybody from teachers union presidents to anyone that's opposing it in legislation and in the halls of justice, they have nothing to say. And as parents, and this is my last thing, as parents, when your child is stuck in a failing school, and you
Mhm.
are their parent, and you
That's
have
right.
to see the pain, the frustration, and them
Hmm.
telling themselves, and I used to watch my daughter say, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. You as a parent will believe in school choice.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
will do whatever you can do to ensure that they get the educational freedom to learn.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you brought that up because until I love what you said, until it knocks on your front door.
Hmm.
Because, and I often say to legislators, do you want to be the one? Do you want the one with the tagline that says you turn down opportunities for this child? Is that
Right.
what you want to be remembered for? Because are we
Definitely.
really beholden? Are we really beholden to a system so much that we want to refuse and deny parents the opportunity to choose the very best program for their child or the very best resources or the very best opportunities? Really? That's what we want to fight over? It really infuriates me because those experiences that you talk about, Clarice, we experienced it as well. I was told, I didn't want my son. I recently shared about what was
Mhm.
offered to me when he went to public school. And I recently shared that they took me across town to what they deemed was just the state of the art. We're going to place all these kids in this school across town here. They're all going to be here. All these kids that are like each other. We're going to put them
Mm.
all in one school. And at the time, there were 9 elementaries. And they said, we're going to bus him over here. And I said, well, he has a school less than a mile away. And I said, how long is this bus ride? And they said, 45 minutes.
My
And then
God.
he'll have to leave. Oh, no, no, Blake, brace yourself. And then he'll have to leave school early to catch the bus to get home. And I said, what? So now he's going to get to class late and he's going to leave class early. So now we've lost. When are we going to catch up this learning time? And they took me to the classroom. And in the classroom, in the center of the room, was a jungle gym. And I said, I am so sorry, but I have a passive learner. And he's going to be underneath that jungle gym every day. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's dead weight with low tone. You're not going to get him out of there. And then over there on the desks, I said, well, what is this? And they said, well, this is their work. And it was a coloring book and crayons.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
And I
Jesus.
No,
said,
no.
thank you, but no, thank you. And I said, what do we, oh, no, don't you worry. They go into the other classroom. So I stayed all day. I stayed all day, ladies, and I watched. And they took these children, several in wheelchairs, several like my son with multiple disabilities, and they rolled them into the back of the classroom and parked them. And everything went on. And they were in the back of the classroom. And I said, let me tell you what, this is just as bad as putting my son in an advanced level science class or chemistry class and allowing him to just take up oxygen because that class is going to be just as worthless to him as this class is. You see, he needs a functional learning environment. Well, we just don't offer that. Our district does not offer that. And I said, well, okay. So I said, he's going to go to school then with his sisters 1 mile from our house. That's where he's going to go. And I had a physical therapist, a young gal, young, sweet little thing, that just got out of school.
That's okay.
Uh-huh. And she says, I don't know whose stupid idea it was for him to be at this school. He needs to be up across town with those other kids like him. He needs to be with kids like him. And I said, thank you so much, but we will no longer need your services because that was my stupid idea. And at least yeah, Clarice, brace yourself, honey. So that was the last PT that he got from her. And I say all these things because each
And
story
I'm
that
gonna
we,
be, I don't even mean to cut you off, but Sam
right?
and what Tara has done with Sam
Mhm.
and who Sam is. And I met Tara, I met Sam first. Sam is how I got introduced to Tara because of how he was on a panel for school educational choice, educational freedom. And if Tara hadn't done, see, I didn't got all worked up. I'm sorry. But
No, it works me up every time I think about it.
what Tara did, and because she did not allow them to define who her son could be, regardless of Down syndrome or whatever, he is the type of individual that is a model of what educational freedom can do, and
Yes.
that we don't dumb down education for anybody,
Anybody.
regardless of their
That's right.
disability.
That's right.
We
That's
continue
right.
to thrive and try to figure out what is the best way for them to learn.
Yeah.
I am so thankful that you were a parent who did not stand for it. And that is what moms are on a mission are. We are parents who will not allow you to dumb down our children's education and dumb down their futures
Yep.
That's right.
because you think that's what should happen.
Mhm.
And that's
I'm
and that's
sorry.
what we no, that thank you, Clarice. I appreciate that. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. And I know we've gone on a little bit about our stories, but
I just got
we share that with you. It's so important for you to understand that we've been through the trenches and we're just typical everyday moms, just like all of you out there who were forced to make a decision. And we could get in, this will be another episode as to how we made the decision. Like Clarice said, it came knocking at our front door, and
Mhm.
we decided that choice was the way to go. Not because we hated another system, not because we wanted to, you know, treat teachers poorly, because my number one savior, so was Clarice, and hello, Becky's one of them, were the teachers. And I did have a couple really good secretaries that fed me some really quality information. So we cannot
yes,
forget those.
yes.
But we are right in the trenches with you, and we know
Yes.
what you're going through. So we have a couple questions, some things that we want to cover tonight. But first and foremost, before we get to those questions, I want to say, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, you can do it.
Mhm.
You trust your
And
gut. You
Yep.
listen to what's not right. You can make decisions, and then you look for your resources. You look for your resources like Becki or like Clarice or like myself, and you cash in on those resources and make sure that you get the supports that you need in order to make decisions that are perfect for your children. So let's go to our first question that we have here tonight. I have trouble with a stubborn kid. Summer, thanks for checking in. And I think each one of us, has a stubborn kid. My Samuel, I'm telling you what, he's going to be 31 this year, and that is like an immovable mountain. So I'm going to give you a little bit on this one, and then girls, if you want to chime in, otherwise we can move right on to the next questions. But Summer, you have to be more stubborn than your child. That's what I'm going to say. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, let's just talk about gift cards. I'll give you that as an example. Samuel was not real strong in math. And sometimes for Christmas and birthdays, people give him gift cards. And he is determined that if he has a gift card, by golly, he is going to go out to eat at that location right here and now. And we have to outsmart him. So we work on direct consequences for every instance. Um, if you want to do this, you got to do that. And the number one thing that I can say to outwit the stubborn child is to be the last one standing, is to outwit them, find what makes them tick, make negotiations depending upon whether or not their age is appropriate. But I'll go back to this, and we said it before in a different episode. Say what you mean and mean what you say, and don't
Yes.
change your mind. Do not back down on that. It will be hard, but if you outlast your child, you will eventually break that stubbornness, but not break the spirit of your child. And they will learn that you are the authority. And lots and lots of different Mary Poppins. I tease people all the time. I'm like, oh, I had all kinds of stuff in my Mary Poppins bag, to figure out what would make them tick. And then I would negotiate that to the best of the ability. And my last thing on this one is always give them the power to choose, but always make sure that the two choices that you give them, two options, are always winners for you. So
Yes.
in other words, never give an option that you will regret, but
Yes.
always make sure that the option, that the two choices are winners for you, because then they feel like they are empowered, they
Mhm.
get choice, and they're more apt to go along and make a good decision because you've given them two winners.
Yeah.
So that's my tip on the stubborn child for tonight. We can give you more tips on that later. If
Yes.
anybody doesn't have anything
It's
worth sharing, we've got a few more things. Go ahead.
it's kind of like playing Survivor, outwit, outlast, and whatever the other out is. I can't
Outplay.
remember. Yeah,
It's outlast, outplay, I think.
yeah. So I feel like all of the moms should get those buffs
Yes.
to remind us, like that's how we have to deal with the stubborn kid.
Yep. Move it through. I love it. Do we have another question in there today, Paul? Thanks. Oh, Edna. No, I don't have a question per se, but I just lost my nephew who was 22 years old. And Edna, let me first say I am so sorry. And we have Clarice has a word for you as she has experienced loss herself.
Yeah, and I deeply empathize with what you're going through. I the daughter that I was talking about that I showed a little bit earlier, I lost her to gun violence at 24 years of age, and so I got that call in the middle of the night that said that she had been shot, and then to go to the crime scene and to see her laying in on the ground in January 24th of 2015. So I get it. I understand that. And the only thing that I can tell you is that you've got to grieve. You've got to give yourself time to grieve, and there's no time frame on that.
That's right.
And you've got to remember your nephew, and then if you can, and in any way that you can, create some type of memorial that means something to you. If that memorial is just a garden in your backyard, if that memorial is um, advocating for a cause that was near and dear to him, and then being there for your either your sister or your brother or what have you who've lost their child. I just want you to know that it's something that grief is a journey,
Yeah.
and that you will always carry them with you, which I know you know that. But I just want you to know that we're praying for you. I'm praying for you. I'm glad that you felt like this was a safe space to
Yeah.
share that with us and to get some support from us as fellow moms and as an aunt. I know that you're like second moms. Like my aunts were and are my second moms, and so it's like a loss to your heart. And so I just want you to know that you're not alone, that this is a club nobody wants to be in. I definitely didn't want to be in it, but I'm here for you. If you need me, you can reach out to me at the information below, and I will do what I can to be of support to you. But God bless you.
Thank you, Clarice. Thank you. Thank you, Edna, for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Yep.
Paul, do we have any other questions in there? This is from Tracy. My son has autism. I would like to connect with other families who have a child with a disability as well. Becki, would you like to take this one?
Yes, I would love to. Tracy, thank you for your question. My first question back to you would be, are you on social media? Because if you are, you can look on Facebook for some support groups. I know with having a daughter with a disability, I have connected with a Springfield, Missouri specific group for parents of children with disabilities, in addition to a state group, in addition to a national group. So if you're on social media, you can definitely find groups through that. I would also encourage you to reach out to your state Department of Education to see what resources they have. I'm sure you can just Google wherever you are, whatever state you're in, Department of Education, and see what they have listed. And also, something that we recommend to every parent is I'm going to make sure that I say this correctly because I spelled it wrong earlier. Parent Center Hub. So that's parent, PARENT, CENTER. I thought it had an ED. Don't put an ED. HUB.org. And there are just so many resources listed on that website that you can access. So I'm so glad that as a mom, Tracy, you are reaching out to get help and support. None of us can do this alone. And to be willing to reach out and see how you can be connected with others in your community and in your state, um, that's brave, and it's good. It's a good thing.
And I just want to add, like, if you haven't heard of Autism Speaks, reach out to them. There are a lot of autism centered organizations around the nation. I don't know exactly where you live, but those type of organizations exist. And then you can also, like Becki said, look at for parent groups there, but look at the larger autism organizations to connect you to local organizations, and then from there you'll find a network of individuals that can help you with that. And I'd like to say one last thing: with your child that is autistic, do what we did as moms. Don't allow anybody else to define the height that your child can aspire to. You know your child best. And so always keep that in the forefront of your mind, and don't back down from what you believe your child needs educationally.
That's right, Clarice. That's good.
Paul, do we have, okay. I tried to open enroll my child into another public school and they were denied. What do I do? So I got this question. I know I got this question, and two things that came to mind when I heard this question asked me. Number one, the age old adage of, well, why would you need school choice? Because the public school can provide everything you need and they're open to everyone, they accept everyone. Well, that's not necessarily true, because this particular parent would not be opting to put their children into another public school if their current public school was meeting their needs. And secondly, this public school denied the children entrance. And
Mm.
I find that to be astonishing. And the mother was so frustrated because she said, don't they get per pupil dollars? It's a public system. They said that they provide for everyone. And I said, I know. And I recommended, I said, well, did you get a written decline? And she said, no. I said, okay, then you need to stop on their front doorstep and you need to ask why and who denied them and for
Mhm.
what reason. And, let's remember, parents, that I don't really have a solution for this because we need to find out more detail to this particular question. But I said, first of all, you need to find the details as to why were they denied and who did the denying, so that you can
Mhm.
go and look to step two, where you're going to try to place your child, but also to realize that our public system is not meeting the needs of every single child. And that is why the three of us are here, is because choice needs to be an option. We need to provide education for our children. And in this mother's case, her only option, she said, with her public school was that she would then have to go to due process. And I said, oh, welcome to the journey of breaking your back, financially, as well as endless court issues. And the public school system has an endless pile of tax dollar resources to hire their attorneys, which
Yep.
parents do not. And so I said, unfortunately, let me have you start with why were you denied, get it in writing. Maybe there was a mistake. And secondly, let's look at what are your other options. What are some other things that you can do, as far as where your family location is, what type of resources are available, and what other types of options. Because guess what? We are knocking on the door of July. And
Yeah.
this is when, parents, you are looking for the best placement for your child for next year. And July is when schools start to put their cutoffs in place for the following year, especially if you're looking at open enrollments, you're looking at choice programs. So I don't know if either one of you have any other suggestions on where to have that parent start. That's where I told them to start, is to start gathering information. And again, finally, if it's not written down, it never happened.
Yes, that is
So
exactly what I was going to say. You have to have the documentation to show that who denied it, why it
right,
was denied. You've got to have it in writing, and
right,
not
and
just
right.
a phone call. Phone call doesn't
No,
count.
Phone call doesn't count. And that's what I told her. I said, "What? How did you find this out?" Oh, they called me. A
Nope.
substitute secretary called me. I said, "No, no, no." I said, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I know that you work," and she works in a public system. I said, "No, no, I know you work in a public system, but I'm going to tell you, if it's not in writing, you didn't get an email, you don't have it in writing, it never happened. So you need to."
Yeah.
I said, "You know what? I found that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Show up on their doorstep and say, hey, how you doing? I need some information." And I said, maybe call 3, 4, 5, 6 times this week. I said, you got a couple days before Friday. So let's see if we can't get some answers. Clarice, do
Yeah.
you have anything else you want to add to
I,
that? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, if it's not written, it's not said. And as a special education advocate in IDEA, specialized people with information are called lay advocates. And
Mm-hmm.
so my suggestion is even with if they stay in this school system, they got to go through due process, is look and see if you have any special education advocates in your area, in your state, and you can look that up. One great resource is called the Council of Parents, Advocates, and Attorneys, and I'm a member of that organization. And it's the acronym is COPA, COPAA, and I think it's COPAA.org is the website. And then you can go specifically there, and you can find attorneys and or advocates that specialize in special education. And most of the people that are on that list have gone through extensive training and or are attorneys that specialize in this arena, and they may be able to assist you and help you in the process of what you're dealing with.
That's a great idea.
Great. Well, ladies, we are out of time for tonight. I'll tell you, we never have quite enough time, but I think that we could sit down and talk for an entire weekend,
We
and
Yes.
maybe
could.
we'll do that soon with you.
We could.
So we thank you so much for tuning in. Please do not hesitate to access the information resources that we posted on the screen if you have questions or concerns, and we will definitely write them down and share them in our next All Moms Talk. And we look forward to you joining us on the second Tuesday in July.
Thanks, ladies.